So we have this story about Jennette McCurdy and Josh Peck, and apparently they have beef, former Nickelodeon stars. So allegedly, Jennette McCurdy recorded a podcast episode with Josh Peck and his new co-host on the show Good Guys, where they talked about her memoir back in August called I'm Glad My Mom Died, where she kind of revealed a lot of information about Dan Schneider and his abuse and his weird sexual coercion toward the Nickelodeon stars, but especially his weird relationship with her.
Yeah.
And around the time of its release, she did an interview with Josh Peck, and they were talking about their past on Nickelodeon, which sounds really interesting, and I would love to get this lost episode, but it's never going to come out.
Never.
Because afterwards, Jennette McCurdy basically said, okay, don't release that. I don't want you to release that anymore. It's unclear why she said that, why she made that decision, but he has not released it. And he recently mentioned it again when he had Tana Mongeau on their show. This was the very first guest that they had on the show, and they had to cancel that episode. Let's watch that clip of them with Tana Mongeau, because she wanted the dirt about Dan Schneider, and weirdly, Josh Peck was kind of guarded about it.
This one, right? Mm-hmm. All right, here we go.
That's book. I don't know where. Oh, and obviously the Dan Schneider or alleged Dan Schneider
those glasses
chapters were so crazy, and it just put me and all the Jamie Lynn Spears conspiracies and stuff like that.
The conspiracy that Dan Schneider impregnated
you on this. I don't want to ask you anything that makes
so that she had to quit Zoe 101, but that didn't happen.
What were your interactions with him like, if I can ask?
I am being 100% honest. He just was a tough boss.
Yeah,
but
you weren't his type.
I was a kid,
which is crazy. Yeah, with it, obviously, I'm sure
Dan Schneider didn't swing that
in therapy.
way.
You know, the feelings of
that's right,
having a fucking boss when you're a kid, and the child star of it all is just crazy to me. I could talk about it for hours, but yeah, I guess you probably lucked out in the regard of your interactions with him.
Because
see, I like what you just said, because we actually spoke about it a little during the Jennette podcast that never aired and will never see the light of day. But
yeah. So then in the video below this one, they talk more about that.
Okay, here we go.
I read Jennette McCurdy's book. I thought it was an amazing book.
So did we, despite what Jennette says.
What did? Oh, does she think?
She was our first
Mr.
ever
Good Guy
guest.
over here.
Really?
Like the day that she
Ironic
released
podcast
her
name.
book, like she was becoming it. She came on. It was an amazing get for us. We were truly good guys. Unbelievable interview. Spoke about everything that she wanted to. Nothing
I'm a
that she
male
didn't want
feminist
to.
I was just saying, that's almost as scary
I'm a
as somebody
victim
saying,
ally.
That's almost as sus as I'm a male feminist.
Told us not to run it. We've spoken about this endlessly. But so there is an unreleased episode of our podcast. The two of us and Jennette.
Well, that must be so.
It's available below on Patreon for $5.99.
Oh,
no, I'm just kidding.
No, that's our first OnlyFans, Josh.
I was gonna say that, and then I didn't know if I should. I don't think Jennette McCurdy wanted to be in that sentence coming out of Tana Mongeau's mouth, but you said it.
Can I? There is a small update, because you're right. We have talked about this endlessly. That happened yesterday.
Yeah.
So us being the good guys we are.
Seriously,
I really don't like that. I know they're trying to say it in a self-aware way, but at the same time, they're doing what nice guys do.
Do you want to come back on?
I'm such a here. Oh my gosh,
I'm saying it ironically.
I can't believe he would treat you that
But I
way.
really am a nice guy.
So 4 or 5 months later, we got you. We got H Duff. I'm like, we're killing it. Let me check in. She
Kill
knows
dog.
us. All I wrote to Jennette after
Check
6
your
months
drinks,
was,
ladies.
Hi. Hi.
Her laugh is amazing.
That's awful.
Oh, that's tough.
I got a green bubble. Am I blocked?
Yeah, so Jennette basically ghosted Josh Peck after they recorded that episode. And then he texted her again recently, just hi, didn't get a reply, but it seems like he got blocked. Seems like she blocked his number. What could he have possibly said or done that prompted such a response, other than just be a nice guy and a male feminist ally?
Well, you know what? There's nothing at all suspicious about male feminists. We know this.
And if there's any Me Too victim I sympathize with, it's the child stars, the former child stars, because they have a legitimate claim. And Dan Schneider has a known reputation, and it took him so long to get cast out of the fold.
Yeah.
Because he is, I mean, honestly, let's be real. Like, Dan Schneider was the genius behind Nickelodeon's best shows, and now that he's not there, it's the quality has gone down. Unfortunately, there are a lot of creeps that create really successful companies and products. But now that we know more about Dan Schneider and Jennette McCurdy's experiences with him, I mean, we don't know for sure because she referred to him as the creator, but let's be real. That's who it was.
It's weird too because like wouldn't the whole point of the podcast be to release that type of episode that's actually going to get you to pertinent information?
Well, yeah. So he insists that when they had her on their show, she was not pressured to talk about anything she didn't want to talk about.
But she just decided after the fact
by choice, and they were friendly, and they both, I'm sure, had a lot of things to air out and things that they kept close to their chests. But now she immediately said, like, don't put this out there. So, and he didn't, credit to him, I guess.
I wonder if she was paid for her appearance.
But people are getting mad at Josh Peck now because he's saying she owes us after they scrapped that episode. Yeah. As if she owes you airing out her personal, like, childhood trauma. Yep. Like, trauma is marketed and commodified already too much.
But Mary, he's a good guy.
We don't need any more of it.
He said so. He's a good guy.
It's weird you would name the podcast the Good Guys Podcast and then literally be the...
Not good guys.
The stereotypical nice guy ally.
I'm telling you, check those drinks, ladies. If those guys are in the room...
You should not, like, be alone with.
No.
Literally. He just seems like kind of a jerk and not sympathetic.
Oh, I guarantee you, just by watching that clip, that when that dude blows up at people, it's vile. Like,
yeah, I don't like vile. His mannerisms.
Like, he's not, having not knowing a thing about him, but that type of person, when they go out of their way to be, to sound like the nice guy, or to sound like they're somehow above how other people, regular people behave, I guarantee you behind the scenes, there's bad stuff. Not like criminal stuff, but it's like, nobody's that nice all the time, right? Like
someone said, Josh, because nothing screams friendship like discussing your friend's traumatic experience on a public platform without their consent.
Yep.
That's trauma coins, ladies and gentlemen. Cashing in your trauma coins.
Cha-ching,
but it's somebody
cha-ching.
else. Yeah, it's somebody else's experience. If she didn't want you to put out the episode, I guess tough luck. But like, it's not like she was obligated to give you content.
Yeah.
You know, I thought that was supposed to be like we're old friends.
It would also be interesting to discuss or to know whether they discussed beforehand whether that topic was going to come up.
I mean, obviously, it was around the release of her memoir.
Yeah.
And her memoir goes into extreme detail, not only about her relationship with her mom, which was horrible. Sounds awful, which we talked about at the time, but about Dan Schneider. So I would expect that's on the table for discussion. And she talked about a lot of those things in other interviews. But I think Josh Peck just was not sympathetic. And I think it's mainly because being a former child star comes with a lot of like narcissism and
to be fair, that's like I'm sure that's a very hard habit to break after you're treated like the world revolves around you.
True.
For a period of time when you're younger, and then to get away from that when suddenly you're not the most important thing in the world.
Another thing that sucks about this is it's just another podcast of a former child star talking about their shows that they were on at Disney or Nick.
Look, like I can't blame these people for finding a revenue stream.
Interesting at all. And then you bring someone on who is interesting, only because of their negative experiences that they have to talk about. and you're mad at them because you can't grift off of their trauma.
I mean, I've heard people say that the Smallville podcast is really, really good. Like the one where they talk about episodes of Smallville, like the Michael Rosenbaum one or whatever. Like that. That's not like his podcast is like Inside of You, which is like the worst name for a podcast ever.
I hate that.
Yeah, I know. Right?
It's awful.
But it's funny too because I actually find it more interesting to hear people that weren't involved. Like my favorite X-Files podcasts wouldn't be ones from the actors. It's ones when normal people discuss what the show meant to them or review the show in an unbiased way because they weren't there, they weren't on set. Like I almost find like those types of rehashes or like a celebrity, like I'm not going to expect David Duchovny to remember something special from every single episode that he filmed. I can barely remember what I said on Friday, like on this podcast. Like I would rather hear a normie's perspective or like a fan's perspective from somebody who's different than me. Like those are the podcasts that I like for the TV shows that I like. Just normal people reviewing a show they love. Mm-hmm. I don't really.
I get that, and those podcasts, even when it's from like someone who's not one of the stars, they get pretty popular.
Yeah, if my dream podcast outside of doing this would be something where I got to review old TV shows, but it just would never work because once like the audiences never carry over to multiple shows to hold your audience.
Make just Star Wars podcast or just
X-Files.
Walking Dead,
just
X-Files, just all of those.
Yeah, so for me,
but the thing where it's like I'm a former child star and we're making a podcast where we give you all the dirt on what really happened, and they don't end up revealing anything interesting, and they're just grifting off of it. There's just such an oversaturation of that type of content right now,
and
they always go back and like retroactively wokeify everything.
I've also heard that John Bernthal's podcast is pretty good. He's got a podcast of his own.
Yeah, he interviewed Shia LaBeouf on it.
Yeah.
And what was that? That was back in August when he did that, talking about the abuse scandals and stuff that he had prior to announcing the Padre Pio.
Dreamology says Brett Buffy the Vampire Slayer podcast. Actually, my dream podcast would be you know what? I've got one. It wouldn't be one about a specific show. It would be just a podcast about the USA Network from 2007. From 2007 to 2013. Did you ever find merch? No, there was no shirts that were just USA Network.
I don't know
shirts.
why this episode is just like the most harebrained one we've had in a while.
I like it. It's
fine. It's a vibe.
I don't need it to be.
We're hanging out.
Yes, I don't need it to be so rigidly on point. Like one thing that I realize, like when I'm going through and editing, as much as I try to not have to hear myself talk because I hate the sound of my own voice, is like I'll hear myself talking and then I'll be like, why?
Breathe, Brett.
I'll be like, why didn't I bring this up?
Yeah.
Because I stay too rigid. I end up staying too rigidly on point. So, yeah.
It's okay.
So yeah, like she doesn't owe him anything.
No.
Like outside of the idea that maybe like she got paid an appearance fee.
Probably not.
But probably not.
Because the pretense about it is we're good friends. You're coming on my podcast because we're friends, and you're doing me a favor because we're friends.
Yeah, but let's. But
they're not actually friends.
Yeah.
I mean, like that's the same way that he got what's her face? Oh my gosh, the iCarly girl. Miranda Cosgrove.
Right, yeah.
That's the same way that he got Miranda Cosgrove on his YouTube channel. They were not friends. They were not in contact at all.
But
if you can get people to harass someone online enough, then she'll do it for
because they think it's good for. Well, they think it's good for their visibility.
Visibility too.
To do that. So.
But it's just like that. None of these people are friends. It's all fake. It's all astroturfed bullshit. Like it's just like any, like. David Dobrik, like any of the people in David Dobrik's vlogs, they're not really friends. In fact, they kind of hate each other.
Hey Kim 0012 says Etsy has a USA Network T-shirt. Just check for you.
Really?
Going to check later. That is for sure.
Okay.
I'm gonna have to double check later and see if I can buy that in an XL. It's gonna be amazing. Also, I do want to give a shout out to I'm always referencing the chat. I do want to give a shout out to the Discord. Hello, guys and girls and gals. I hope everyone is doing well. Somebody says, I'm glad Brett is back and sounding less sick. Well, that didn't last.
Less
very
sick,
long.
but still noticeably sick.
Yes. So look, it is a weird world, right? Where it's all part of the attention economy. So you could make the argument maybe more that like somebody might be your friend if they just hop on for like a Zoom call podcast with you because they're your friend. But if they're like flying out to do that, like I don't know if that's something you just do for a buddy. I think that's something you're doing because there's a reason.
I mean,
to
it was
do
a book tour.
It
was a book.
It was press
thing.
for something that you're doing.
But again, like she was doing him more of a favor than the other way around.
Yeah.
They said it's a huge get for a show.
Yep.
And another thing is like Josh Peck doesn't seem to care about any of the consequences that followed for other people who formerly had to deal with Dan Schneider. He's saying like, how could you just say he was a tough boss and just kind of leave it at that with no statement? Like, he was a tough boss. I didn't really experience this or that with him, but I heard other people say this or that, and I really sympathize with them if that's true or whatever. Like, it's not libel to just say like,
look, if that happened, that's awful.
Yeah, like he's just like, oh, he was just a tough boss. Like, it really underplays it massively.
Yeah.
And the associating with Drake Bell after Drake Bell has had his own
child
insane
problem,
allegations. He just seems like kind of a POS.
I'm telling you, that guy's private messages are probably things to behold. And those, like, there's going to be a Steven Crowder level video someday of him being awful to people, and that will prove to that. It's like that's the vibe I got off that dude. Just me. I didn't watch like this. It's funny too because all of these shows are so far after my time, but it's just the story of how they behave in Hollywood is classic and it never changes. Like I don't buy for a second that things are any different now. I don't.
No.
Especially not after I saw that story the other day about apparently the girl from the cheer squad and the teacher from Navarro telling the girl to like supposedly not necessarily proven that like if you don't report if you choose not to report this, I'll make sure you can cheer anywhere you want. It's like people don't change.
Yeah.
Like society can pretend people change.
I don't know where this delusion came from that we can just progress past people in power being corrupt.
Never
it's
gonna
never gonna happen.
Never
it's a pipe
gonna
dream.
happen.
You can't progress past
awful behavior,
brokenness in society.
Well, and like, I mean, is that why they rail so hard against the concept of power dynamics, right? Like the idea that but then they now they want to go into a powerless, into a classless society, which isn't realistic. And it's never going to happen in these places.
No.
In these industries like this, so. Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.